Hi guys, welcome back to another video, or your first video here, I don't know. Welcome if you're new here, welcome either way. This is going to be my unhaul for 2025, or the last few months of 2025. I messed both those things up in my previously filmed video. So, I had a big clear out at the end of the year. I really assessed what was still on my shelves, and I have quite a few to get through today, and this is going to take some time, so I'm just going to go into it. First of all, we have any of the books that I basically hauled, read and or DNF'd, and decided then to unhaul in the latter half of the year. First of which is Antonia's Pumpkin. So this was a book, if you watched my haul, that I picked up at a craft fair to support the author. It is a very sweet story about Halloween. It is a kid's book. It has sort of less amount of writing with illustrations done by the author. And I think that I slightly misunderstood the author's pitch of the book when she was saying that Antonia discovers the true meaning of Halloween. I personally thought that meant that she was going to learn the history of Halloween and All Hallows Eve and where a lot of these traditions come from. But what it meant was, you know, when books are sort of tagged with this person discovers the true meaning of Christmas, about it, like a Grinchy person then turning good. It meant that, not that Antonia is a bad character or bad person in here, but yeah, I slightly misunderstood what this was going in. Why am I talking so much? This is an unhaul, not a video wrap up, and this is going to be long as it is. So anyway, getting rid of that one. Next we have the Brotherton Poetry Prize Anthology Volume 3. This is a collection of the shortlist and the winners, either one or two winners I think, from this poetry prize. And though I liked some of the poetry in here, I didn't like all of it. I gave a more detailed breakdown of each of the poets featured in here, and so I don't think it's worth it for me to keep this for the few poems that did work. Next we have Adventure Time, Jake's Jokes. This book probably came with like a Happy Meal. You can see the McDonald's logo on it, and it is connected to the adult cartoon Adventure Time, which is more for older teens and adults, but animated very much in the old kids cartoon style. And I just didn't gel with the humour in here, despite the fact that I do like Adventure Time. Next we have two sweet little books, which are both by Carol Ann Duffy. One is The King of Christmas and the other is Wenceslas. These are beautifully illustrated little poems, which I really enjoyed. I thought they were great, but I feel like I got all I could out of them, and so someone else will enjoy these. Next we have another book that I've read and really enjoyed, A Curse So Dark and Lonely. This is a young adult retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and I knew at the time I read this that this was going to be a problem. I read this very close to reading A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is also a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I knew that in trying to recall this I was getting it mixed up with that one. So no fault of the book, it's just the fact that that one has stayed in my mind more than this one did, although I think that chronic illness has a really good representation in here. I had a really good time reading, not that everything is, you know, fluffy bunnies and rainbows in here, but this was a good read. It just didn't stay with me in the way that I wanted it to. Also, when I started to see the beginning of a love triangle, I was like, I'm now less interested in the sequels. Next we have Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. I never particularly liked this cover version of it, but I really enjoyed this when I read it. It has really good ace representation, and also I just think Alice Oseman does a really, really good job of platonic friendships that are really, really close, and you know that they're never going to be sexualized in the way that a lot of romantic relationships get to. Yeah, this one had great representation of mental health and gender diversity, and having that one outlet that sometimes is all that's getting you through the day. And although I enjoyed it when I read it, I think other people would really enjoy it. Next we have Coraline by Neil Gaiman. Again, I really enjoyed this when I read it. And it's one of those rare cases where I enjoy the book and the movie to the same extent. I think it's because also they're very, very different as well. This feels far more isolated and bleak, I would say, than the movie does. But it's a combination of the fact that I have now been seeing a lot of things about the author that has sort of turned me off keeping this, and I don't think I'm ever going to reread it, so off it goes. Here we have a book that I got from Comic-Con probably about 10 years ago. That is Sunfish Moonfish by Morag Levy. Honestly, I can't remember too much about this, but what I do remember is that I really enjoyed the story despite the art style not working for me. So the art style, fairly simplistic, and I did enjoy it at the time. I can't remember what it's about. Off it goes. A few more comics. We have the Witch Boy trilogy. I don't know if this is the last book in the series, but we have the Witch Boy, we have the Hidden Witch, and we have the Midwinter Witch. So in here we have a really wonderful allegory for parental gendered expectations and that sort of, what's the word? A generational cycle of what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman, and that is with the magic system in here. So in this society, when learning magic, boys are supposed to learn shapeshifting while women are supposed to learn witchcraft. And in here we have a boy who knows that his affinity is for witchcraft, and it's his sort of struggle to be able to express himself in the way that feels most comfortable to him. We have a lovely cast of characters in here. The art style is really wonderful. Full colour illustrations. Lots of diversity in here as well. I just think this hits a little young for me, so I will be passing this on. Next we have Bloom, another graphic novel. This is a queer graphic novel with a really wonderful art style. Got this monochromatic sort of blue. And the character designs also really remind me of Heartstopper, actually, now that I'm looking at these two characters again. Does this not remind you of Heartstopper? Anyway, this features a LGBT romance, and though I really enjoyed this when I read it, it really quickly left my brain, so I think I'm clearly not that attached to this story, so off it goes. Next we have Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. Now I've heard great things about this book, and my dad gave me this copy because he read it and thought I would enjoy it. And what I realised was I want to have read this rather than I actually want to read it. It just doesn't pique my interest. This follows Shakespeare's son, I believe. I don't actually know that much about this, but it just does not intrigue me. So someone else is going to love this. Right, next we have Wizard's Hall by Jane Yolen. So I picked this up because of a recommendation on Tumblr, actually. So that was quite a while ago, because someone had said that this may have been one of the inspirations for a lot of things that occurred in Harry Potter. I did see a lot of the similarities when I read it, and it was an enjoyable read. But am I ever going to read this again? No. Did I love it that much that I want to keep it? Also no. So, bye-bye. Next we have Tokyo Babylon Volume 5. This is one of those times where I picked up a book from a charity shop, probably for about £1 or £2, and it meant that I could just try out the series before actually buying them full price. And I decided to look up volume 1 online and try it out, see what I thought. And I decided not to continue on in the series. This is about, is it Shaman? So this is about, from what I can remember, 2 siblings, I think they're twins, fighting demons. I didn't actually get further into the plot of that, so I can't tell you any more. However, I am glad that Clamp were, so they're the authors, I'm glad that Clamp were able to get why can't I talk today? LGBT stories out in a time where that would have been far more difficult. The representation in here makes me very uncomfortable though, because the age gap is, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was like, I feel icky. So I decided not to continue. Next, we have a book called I'm Jane's Best Friend by, is it J.K. Draws? Yep, J.K. Draws. So this is a poetry collection art book about the author's experience being trans and sort of inspired by Jane Eyre. And I'll be honest, I don't get, like, being autistic, I don't get metaphor that easily. So a lot of it was just going over my head. So though I was very happy to be able to support the author and buy this, I didn't get it. So this will be leaving. Next, we have 5 books in the same series, so I will be getting rid of my copy of The Inheritance Cycle, the first book being Eragon by Christopher Paolini. So I read this book when I was in secondary school. I can't remember exactly when, and I really enjoyed it. I read books 1 to 3, and then book 4 I didn't quite finish before I had to give it back to the library. And then I gave it back to the library and I just never ended up finishing it. So in my adult life, I then decided to reread these so that I could finish out that final book. And I just did not enjoy it to the same extent as an adult that I did when I was younger. I think that this series gets a lot of flack. Is that the right word? I'm not sure. Because of the fact that it is quite a generic fantasy plotline, but the fact that it was written by a teenager, I'm going to forgive it for that. And I did really enjoy this as a teen, and I think that it was a really good introductory series to the fantasy genre. So even though as an adult, when I was reading it and I was getting through the books, and I only really have 1 more book left to finish out the series, I just realised I'm not interested in finishing them. I want to have read them rather than I want to read them. So away these go. Also, my sister is going to be very relieved because she really hated the fact that this series was separated on my shelves, because most of them were on my read shelves and some of them were on my unread shelves, and that was very upsetting to her. So she's going to be over the moon. Next, we have another graphic novel, and that is Nimona by Noelle Stevenson. So this is a story about a shapeshifter named Nimona who decides to pair up and be the sort of evil henchman for the evilest person that she can find. And she sort of finds out that there's more to this story than what it's been painted as, and we learn more about her as a shapeshifter. And I really enjoyed this when I read it. I wasn't a huge fan of the ending, but I really appreciated what it did. And I was really excited for the movie to come out. I thought the animation was gorgeous. And watching that, I think that's the preferred medium that I really enjoy that story. I really like what they did with it in the movie. So I think if I return to it, I will be returning to the movie over this. So someone else will really enjoy this. Wow, it's been 20 minutes and I haven't got through half of them, so I need to pick up a pace. Next, we have Return to Labyrinth, Volume 2. Now, this was another case of I have Volume 2 but not Volume 1. So I found volume 1 online to try it out. I started reading it and I did not like it. This art style on the front cover is stunning. And yet the art style on the inside just does not reflect that in any way. I mean, it doesn't look as bad as it did in volume 1, but really I hated it. So away this goes. Oh, these aren't mine. These are some books that my dad was getting rid of. So might as well show you a couple of Carlos Ruiz Zafón books and a Mythology of the British Isles. I don't know why he had these. So. Oh, this was a book that my dad got me, a book about the French Bulldog, because I own a French Bulldog. This was interesting to flick through, but I'm not really a breed purist. It didn't really capture me that much. It was kind of more like a joke gift, because he was like, oh, you have a Frenchie. This is a book about Frenchies. This next one is Underrated by Morwenna Blackwood. I have no idea what this is about, other than I know that it involves drug abuse. But I realised that I bought this in order to support someone at a local fair, not really because I was that interested in the book, so away this goes. Here we have some more comics. So this is Model Volumes 2, 3 and 6. I did really enjoy this when I read it. I thought it had a really lovely, dark, gothic vibe. It also had a sort of hint of queer relationships in it as well. But the story hasn't stuck with me that I want to continue to collect out the rest of the series. Next, we have the trilogy of Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. So I know that this is a very popular series, so you've probably heard this already. But this book takes inspiration from old black and white photographs where improbable things are shown that the author found in like a box of photographs, so created this story inspired by that. It was an enjoyable reading experience for me, but I have no desire to continue on with the companion series, and I don't think I'm really going to return to these ones, so away they go. Next we have What's the Tea by Juno Dawson. This is a companion novel to This Book is Gay by the same author. I really enjoyed this. I think it's very, very informative. It's talking about the author's experience with being trans, with also giving people like an introduction point to learning about what it means to be trans or gender diverse in some way. And I thought it was interesting, but I think I'm not the target demographic for this, and I think someone else would get a lot more out of it. Okay, we're on the last third. So, a couple more comics now. We've got the Midnight Secretary volumes. This is volumes 1 and 2, yes. So, this is a book series about someone who is a secretary to a vampire. I enjoyed this when I read it, but really I have no interest in continuing the series at this point. It doesn't interest me like it did when I was a teenager, so off that goes. Next we have another graphic novel, In Real Life, by Cory Doctorow and Jen Wang. I think this does a really good job of having a balanced conversation about how much online gaming can mean for people's interaction with one another and discovery of themselves and expression of themselves, while also having a really good discussion about the way that online gaming can take advantage of certain groups of people. So I thought this was really interesting, and the art style is really, really wonderful, but I think someone else would really enjoy this. Next we have El Defo by CC Bell. This is a really sweet graphic novel with a really cute art style about a child who... Do you use goes deaf in the way that you use goes blind? I'm not sure what the wording is, but it gives really wonderful representation of a young person learning to cope with hearing aids and with sign language and the way in which the world treats deaf people as if they're dim. And I think this could do some real good for someone. Right, that is the last of the graphic novels. Now we're on to some more novels. So here we have Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I really enjoyed this when I read it. But for me, romance has to really stand out in order for me to absolutely love it in the way that I do tend to love other genres like fantasy. And I don't see myself returning to this one, and I think someone else would really love this. Next we have Ramona Blue by Julie Murphy. I absolutely love this book. I think it did such a good job of being really real and showing someone really going through it. And also I think that did a really good job of someone realizing that the label that she's been using doesn't really fit anymore. I think that this was getting some bad press from people who really hadn't read the book, talking about how it was representing people who were a lesbian until they found the right man, which is not what it is at all. It's someone who used the term lesbian because of their experiences up until that point, until they started having feelings for a guy, and that had never happened before for them, and learning what her attraction was sort of turning into and what her label would change to. And I think that was a really nuanced version of that conversation, which I don't think we see enough of, but I think someone else would really love this. Over the Top by Jonathan Van Ness. Jonathan is one of the people in Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, which is a show I really do enjoy when I watch it. I don't really watch TV all that much. And I did enjoy this when I read it, but I don't see myself ever returning to it. Next we have another romance, The Kiss Quotient. I think I was really keeping this because it was one of the first times I was reading a book that within the autism spectrum represented me. I mean, I didn't identify with all of the aspects of this character. I think we are very different people. However, I think that so many of the books that are labelled as autistic representation, I just think don't capture much nuance in that conversation. I think that it's probably getting better, but I think that's what really stuck out to me. So someone who is more of a romance reader will probably enjoy this a lot more. Next we have two books I'm going to kind of pair together because I have similar thoughts about them. They also look really nice together. Anyway, we have The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw and The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. So these are both young adult books that have that really nice, creepy atmosphere that doesn't quite go into the outright scary, that it just had that perfect balance for me. But I don't see myself returning to these. They are young adult books that I think someone else would really enjoy, so I'm going to pass these on. And on to the final two. I've been filming for way too long. We have Sorted by Jackson Bird. This is a memoir from Jackson, who is probably most famous for doing YouTube. And I thought this was a really interesting story. Again, I think that this could do more for someone else. Also, I just don't see myself reaching for this again, given how big of a part the Harry Potter fandom played in Jackson's life. And I think just with J.K. Rowling's recent views, I would feel uncomfortable reading this, knowing how much also this author has probably had to cope with reconciling this part of their life. And actually that leads perfectly into this book by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. So this is Dear Ijeawele, A Feminist Manifesto in 15 Suggestions. I really enjoyed this when I read it. It's a very short feminist book. However, I've more recently learned about this author's very transphobic views, and I just don't feel comfortable having this on my shelves. So away it goes. And there you have it. Those are the many, many books I was getting rid of for the latter half of 2025, and I am excited for lovely new books to fill my shelves. So let me know about a book that you got rid of last year, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.